Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So in today's video we're going to be finding two fun ways to use large aperture stencils and how we can use them with weaving paper strips and also weaving washi tape. Now I have these gorgeous silhouette animals stencils from Funky Fossil Designs. I've got an owl, a polar bear, and then I've got this stag's head, a fox, and also a horse. And this is how I store my stencils in this little folder. I'll pop links to all the products in the description box below. But I haven't had a chance to use them, and I really wanted to find a way of using them that was slightly different to just simply ink blending through them or adding texture paste. So I thought today we'd do some paper weaving and then we would try the same technique using washi tape. Now I've got all these strips of coloured cardstock, and all I'm going to do first of all is just line a few strips vertically down the stencil. Once I'm happy that they're nicely spaced, I'm going to use some washi tape to hold those all in place at the top of the stencil. I'm then going to come in and do the paper weaving. So for one layer it will be over, under, and the next layer will be under, over. So you kind of get the idea. I'm sure many of you have tried paper weaving before. And this is a great way of using up your scraps. So of course you could use this with pattern paper and I'm sure it would look equally stunning, if not more so. But these were the strips that have been on my desk for quite a long time and I really want to find a way of using them up today. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm just pulling them along because I'm going to need a few more strips at the bottom. So I thought if I just pulled them along and snipped off the excess, we'd be able to use a few of those smaller pieces at the bottom there as well. Now, I know I've sped this process up. In real time, it took me about 11 minutes to do this paper weaving, but it is quite relaxing and easy to do. And it is a great way of just having a few minutes of crafting time, especially if you don't want to be digging out loads of supplies. Paper weaving is just, it's great for that. So here you can see, as we flip the stencil over, you can see the aperture of the owl's got that lovely weaving. So how are we going to get the owl shape? Well, the easiest way so far that I've found is to add a load of washi tape over the back of those strips just to hold them in place. Then what we're going to do is take it off the stencil, flip the stencil over, and then we can draw around the stencil on the back of all that paper weaving. So I was going to use a biro, but I thought it'd be easier for you to see on the camera if I use a white gel pen. So I'm just using a jelly roll and all I'm doing is drawing around the stencil. Now there is a few fiddly bits at the bottom of this stencil, but you could easily just curve the lines around and make it less complicated if you wanted to. So here you can just about see the line that I've drawn. In real life it's a lot easier to see, so I can clearly see where to cut. I'm using my cutter bee scissors, which are great for fussy cutting and great for getting into all those small areas when you're cutting stamped images out, or like in this case we're cutting the stenciled image out. And all I'm doing is carefully going around, snipping off all the excess, and if there's any smaller pieces, for example the ear at the very top, the little bit of weaved paper just fell off, so we're going to be able to glue that back on later, but the rest of the image has pretty much stayed intact. Because the white line was still on the little bit of the ear, I'm able to just cut around it and then we can glue it in place. And I'm just using some Cosmic Shimmer glue today. Now, the same as you would do with any paper weave, you just add a little bit of glue along each of the strips and this will just hold them in place. Because this is going to go on the front of the card, you don't want it to come apart once it's in place. So it's just a good way. You see here just how you can see all the little flaps. Just add a little bit of glue underneath each of them and that will just hold them in place. And you'll have this beautifully solid weaved image. Once I've glued all of those pieces in place, I'm going to show you a close-up image of the owl there. And you can just see the light catching the holographic cardstock as well. It's really, really pretty. So to turn this into a card, I'm going to keep it really simple because the focus is on the paper weave. I've got this leaf fall stencil from Funky Fossil Designs, and I'm just going to use some leftover, I think it's squeezed lemonade on the brush here. I'm just going to blend through the stencil. I'm not going to add any more ink. I just want a really soft, subtle blend. And then I'm just going to attach the owl using some Cosmic Shimmer glue. Before I do that though, I'm just going to cut a matte layer. Now this panel measures 4 7/8 squared inches. And I'm just neatening it up because the lines weren't quite straight. And then I'm going to cut a matte layer that's 5 1/4 inches squared so that it's got a nice border around it. I'm just going to use some Collal Glue here just to attach that down. And then I'm going to bring in this really gorgeous Scribble Owl Stamp set from Funky Fossil because I want to use that sentiment, "You are owlsome," on the bottom of the card. Now, I wasn't sure what colour ink I wanted to stamp my sentiment in. I was just about to do it in black, and then I thought, do you know what? I think I really want to do it in orange. So I've got this gorgeous orange ink from Versafine Clair. It's called Summertime, and I'm just stamping it on a scrap of paper first, just to see if it is the colour that I really want on my card. And I decided that I do want to go ahead with that. So I'm just going to stamp that directly onto that card front. And then I'm going to cover the back of the owl in Cosmic Shimmer Quick Grab Glue. And I'm just going to attach that down there to the left of the card panel. And I just think it looks really pretty. The weaved papers they just look lovely. And you can really see the owl shape there as well. Then I'm just going to attach it down to a shop bought 6x6 card base, and then that is our finished card. I'm just going to add a little bit more glue to any weaves that I see popping up, and then there we go. At the end of this video I will attach some close-up photos. So for the next card we're going to do some washi weaving this time. Now I've got this C6 card panel, A6 card panel, and I've just trimmed down a card front slightly smaller so there'll be a nice white border when I've finished. And for this card, we're going to use this gorgeous polar bear stencil. Now, it just calls out for a winter scene because it's a polar bear. So that's what I went with today. So completely contrast in colours, but I just think it lent itself to this. So I've got these two washi tapes from Funky Fossil Designs. Now, I definitely think thinner washi tape would be better for this weaved effect. But because the patterned one I'd got is a wider one, that was what I decided to use today. I hadn't really got another thin one in a blue that I could use, so this is what we went with. And again, we're just going to weave it under and over, under and over. I'm just trimming off the ends because I don't want it to keep sticking to the desk. And the best way to do the under and over with the weaving of the washi tape is to just peel up the layers that it's going to go under. It just makes it a lot easier. So I did one patterned piece, then I did another thin blue piece, and then I did another layer of the patterned piece, just following that weave process of over, under, and alternating that. Once we're done, I'm going to bring in my cutting mat and a craft knife, and all we're going to do is go around the edge of the stencil, cutting the washi tape. Now, you don't need much pressure for this, and you won't damage your stencil if you're careful. All you want to do is add light pressure just to cut through the washi tape. The washi tape is so thin that it's really easy to cut through, so you just want to try and be careful as you're going around the image. Once you've done most of it and it starts to fall out, I'm going to bring in that card front now, and then I'm just going to go around the edges with the craft knife from the top. Again, it's easier to see the image if you use some pressure from your fingers around the edge of the stencil, and then that way you'll clearly be able to see where the knife needs to go. It's a little bit tricky to show that on camera, but that's all I'm doing here. Now, as you can see, when I pull that stencil off, you've got this gorgeous polar bear there showing on the paper. It looks really pretty. I think the washi tape's really effective for this, and of course, you know, it's going to look different every time depending on the washi tape that you're using. So next I'm just going to create a little bit of a background for it. So I've got chipped sapphire and tumbled glass. I've used the chipped sapphire around the top and I used tumbled glass down the bottom. I'm using Funky Fossil blending brushes and I'm just lightly going around the edges. Then I'm going to spritz the darker blue just so that we get a night sky effect, and I think that makes it look really, really pretty. If you find that you get a little bit of shadowing around the washi taped polar bear and the stencil edge, you can just use a paintbrush, a little bit of water, and just try and blend the oxides out. Because they're water reactive, it's really easy just to do that. I then just decide that I'm going to add some stars using a silver gel pen. Now this is a silver glitter gel pen. I think it's a uniball one, but it glides on the Distress Oxide really, really smoothly. So I've just added loads of dots and stars. For the sentiment, I've used Stay Cozy, which is from an All in Creative stamp set, and I'm just using the Twilight Versafine Clair ink, which is a lovely navy blue, to stamp that. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of white ink at the bottom. This is pigment ink. It's Stamps by Me, white cotton pigment ink. I was about to go pad to paper and then I thought, no, what are you doing? I don't want to contaminate it. It's a brand new pad. So I've got a really small, clean blending brush from Funky Fossil Designs, and I'm just going to use some of the white pigment ink just to soften the edges of that blue. I kind of wanted a snow effect, but then I changed my mind and thought, do you know what, just blending it out with a little bit of white will just soften that and just give it that lovely winter scene. Next, I'm going to add a few white splatters. This is a colour pop in white from Pearlywinks, and it's an acrylic paint. Now remember, anything is going to kind of react with the Distress Oxide, so it doesn't stay a bright, vibrant white, but it just adds enough of an effect just to kind of enhance that sky scene. Once that's dried, I'm going to add a few little gems, and I'm also going to attach it down to the card panel, which I attach it down to the card panel first, and then I'm going to add some of those little gems to finish. Those little gems are from scrapbook.com. They've got varying sizes in the packet, which I really like. I like it when you've got a variety of sizes so that you can just add those little finishing touches to cards. I'm using some Ranger Multimedia matte glue, which is in that little bottle, just because if any does ooze out the side, you're not going to see it when it dries because it's going to dry matte. And so there's the second card finished. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope that you've enjoyed seeing these two different techniques. Please let me know in the comments below which one's your favourite, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more from my channel. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.